minutes ahead of time, but we're good.
Okay, so you're all straight.
We're
Yeah.
So
ready.
I'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition show. My name is James Lim Overton, and I'm one of the hosts of the show, Thursday evening show. I'm here along with co-hosts Leah Drake Stitt and Thomas the Colonel Chapman. How are you doing, co-hosts?
All right.
Wonderful.
Another great Thursday,
Another great
another
day.
nice day out there today. Probably could get out there and do some yard work.
Tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow. Don't put off today what you can, that's what they used
Yes,
to say.
indeed.
But anyway, we appreciate you and we welcome the viewers on Facebook Live. And we have a special guest with us as we continue with Women's History Month and honoring amazing women that are local, some not from here, but we are so glad when we have somebody here from Portsmouth on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And that guest will be Dr. Linda Hayden. And
Yes.
Leah is going to introduce her after the Colonel gives her disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
Yes. For those out there in Electron land, the views or any discussion are those of the host and our guests and no one else. And now we can go on. Leah?
Thank you, Colonel.
Okay, I'm always excited when I get the opportunity to introduce a great Norcomite and a great woman in her own rights. So I am so happy to introduce Dr. Hayden. Dr. Hayden holds a PhD in mathematics and education. She's presently the Associate Dean of the School of Mathematics, Science, and Technology at Elizabeth City State University, and the Director of the Center of Excellence in Remote Sensing Education and Research. The SURSERVE program works in partnership with federal agencies, other universities, and private corporations on research projects, which includes focusing on radar and seismic mapping of rapidly charging glacier zones in polar regions for impact on global warming and sea level change.
That's a mouthful.
Woo, that was a mouthful. She's a principal investigator on the NSF Cyber Infrastructure from Remote Sensing of Ice Sheets project, funded through the National Science Foundation Office of Cyber Infrastructure CI Team project. Dr. Linda Hayden was instrumental in establishing the Eastern North Carolina chapter, number 03183 of the Geosciences and Remote Sensing Society, and currently serves as president of that chapter. In her efforts to develop the SS chapter membership and expand the services to the region, she has instituted a distinguished lecture series held each spring, summer, and fall at Elizabeth City State University workshops and symposium series that enhance professional capabilities in remote sensing application to coastal, marine, and polar science. Boy, Norcom did you well, honey. Norcom did you well.
Oh, yeah.
Her efforts to date have led to dozens of new members of the GRS Society and a measurable increase in GRS Society activities in the Eastern North Carolina region. Dr. Hayden was presented the 2003 Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Mentoring by the National Science Foundation. She also received the Emerald Award for Educational Leadership in 2003 and the 2005 IEEE USA Award for Professional Achievement, which acknowledges outstanding accomplishments in cultivating student interest in remote sensing and supporting both their involvement in and research presentations at the IEEE GR 55 conference. In 2009, Dr. Linda Hayden was awarded the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education, the NAFIO Nobel Prize, awarded the 2009 NAFEO conference in Atlanta, Georgia. This award went to faculty members of historically Black colleges and universities, and predominantly Black institutions who were distinguished as teachers and researchers. Her two-part interview, Renaissance People with Dr. Linda Hayden, is now available on YouTube and on the Renaissance Computing Institute website. That says a mouthful, and I'm just so proud to know this lady. But the one thing that I like about this lady is Dr. Linda Hayden has been the undergraduate mentor to some of my favorite people, Carl Seward and Jerome Mitchell. And I can't think of my little lady's name from Norcom. I'm just blanking on her name now.
There are a bunch of them, but Lakeisha Munden.
Lakeisha, that's what I was thinking about.
Oh, that's my girl.
Yes, so she has mentored some of my favorite people.
Yeah.
And my Jerome, who was in my youth chapter, the NAACP, he went all up to Antarctica to check the ice glaciers and all that other good stuff.
He did.
So
and he is now a deep learning engineer for Intel.
Yes.
Wow.
Through her Office of Naval Research, NASA grant writing, she has funded ECSU students to earn undergraduate degrees in mathematics, computer science, and physics. And I know a lot of those young people who have really been rewarded as a means of, because of their involvement with you, Dr. Hayden. You have done a wonderful work. And I tell you what, Israel Charles Norcom is smiling down on you, young lady. That you have done just what his dream. You have brought his dream and his vision to fruition by helping our students become all that they can be. He said, so that they can live the abundant life. And you have truly done that. So it is my pleasure to welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talk this evening, Dr. Linda Hayden.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And another important fact, she is the sister of Stephanie Johnson, and one of my favorite people. Stephanie is my favorite people too, but Darnell Johnson, who we missed immensely. We miss him so very much.
Oh, wow.
So Dr. Hayden,
he
welcome.
Taught my wife.
Huh?
Craddock. Yeah, Craddock, yeah. And Stephanie was a cheerleader when I was there. Stephanie Bailey at the time, I think.
Yes,
was a cheerleader
indeed.
at Norcom. When I was there, I think she came out in the class of 70, but she was there, I remember. And then went on to cheer at Elizabeth City, where she is
and
now.
Still cheering for everybody.
Still cheering for Elizabeth City.
Still cheering for everybody.
I just want to.
Actually, she's chair of the board there.
Yeah, and alumnus of
yes.
Of Elizabeth City, her and Donnell. I just wanted to say this before I had a question for you, but I wanted to read this because this was your doctoral thesis, the title of your doctoral thesis, the impact of an intervention program for high ability minority students on rates of high school graduation, college enrollment, and choice of quantitative major. And that's, I mean, you know, that's almost a story in itself, but hopefully you'll be able to go into that a little bit. But I wanted to say this too, because we've had math majors on here before and other majors, and we always ask them about how early on in their life were they interested in that particular subject. Now, most of the math majors say the same. Other people say, well, they made that choice after high school, or while they were in college, they chose a major. But most math and science majors or people that took that on to their career said it started real early.
Yes.
The interest in that subject, and it just never changed course. So that's something that all the math and science people have in common.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think Mr. Bird. Do you know Mr. Bird? Napoleon Bird. He passed.
Yes, Napoleon Bird. Yes.
He taught me in the 6th grade.
6th grade.
Yes.
That's when I remember it. That interest in science being there was with Mr. Bird, and then left there and went to Clark, where Miss Jenkins and Miss Powell.
Miss Powell, yes.
And they continued to nurture that talent, right? I only spent a year at Clark. I actually spent 5 years at Norcom because I did 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade at Norcom at that time.
Clark was probably crowded, huh?
Yeah, we were up in the projection booth in the balcony auditorium. There was a projection booth. That's but you know, but it gave me early exposure to some pretty serious mathematicians. including Christine Darden. We talked about it a little earlier, Miss Williams and Mr. Faust and White and Miss Falk and all of those. And they really were serious about their mathematics, and they helped us through. We were able to take courses up to calculus at Northam, which was interesting. They would, before that, we had a library, the colored library, which was, and they didn't have a lot of math books. But one thing that librarian would do, she had a bicycle, Miss Bertha.
Yes, Bertha Edwards.
Miss Bertha would go and order books from the main library and get on her bicycle and go get them for us. And she used to bring us all the math books we wanted. And between them and the people at school, at Northam, it was just a very rich environment, a very nurturing environment, and it was a challenging environment. We stayed after school and did science projects and for the math club and so forth. And that was actually what led me to school, because when I graduated as a senior, I didn't know what I was going to do other than maybe make aluminum Christmas trees at Star Band or run the elevator at the professional building. Both I had done.
Or the famous.
But for the project that I had worked on with Christine Darden was a trigonometry project. And I was able to graph these beautiful functions, sine and cosine and tangent and secant. And they took, at that time, there was a effort between Norfolk State and Hampton, Virginia State. Those I remember. Elizabeth City may have been in a bunch, but I remember those. And we would go from campus to campus every year. We would compete. And so I would compete in like Algebra 1, Algebra 2 competitions. But we also have projects, posters. And that poster, I was standing there with my little poster, and Dr. Ruben McDaniels came by from Virginia State. And Dr. McDaniels talked to me about my project, and he said, you know, he challenged me to think more about the phase and the amplitude of those functions that I was graphing. And I was just so happy. He was standing there talking to me about this. And then he said, if I gave you a scholarship, would you come to Virginia State? And I said, yes. I didn't know. I said, yes. You know, I knew what my other options were.
making those Christmas trees, or
Christmas tree, aluminum Christmas tree.
Running the elevator.
Yeah. So, but what I didn't know was it was a tuition scholarship, and there were other fees to be paid with that. But you know, my family, they pulled their little pennies together, and my Uncle Flick Bailey, you remember Uncle Flick? Okay, Uncle Flick. He signed the loan. He signed the note because he had the good credit in the family. And allowed me to go to Virginia State. And so Mama found somebody with a truck and packed us up, took me on up there. But yeah, it was early for me. I realized very early on. And fortunately, that talent was noticed and was nurtured by not just my teachers there, but you know, all over, even during the summer. I don't know if anybody remembers the Blue Goose.
Yes, the Blue Goose Norfolk State bus. Come to community.
Yeah. You could come through the community and pick us up. And we could go over there during the summer and participate in their programs. And they would allow us in the math department to just go into those rooms. And at that time, the classrooms were like blackboards in the front, blackboards in the back, all around the room. Okay, which is all. And we could just work problems all day long with people that we were with people who also enjoyed doing the same thing, challenging each other back and forth. So Norfolk State also contributed to that development, as well as Virginia State and Northam. And I really didn't have a chance to do anything else. And I loved it all. Yeah.
Let me mention this because I see Roberta Carter watching, and for those who don't know, don't recognize the green and pink, Dr. Hayden is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha
Yes.
sorority incorporated. So we have to mention that because we had a Delta on last week and we never heard the last of it if we didn't recognize you.
Okay.
Anyway, I just had to throw that in there.
Thank you.
I don't know who was asking the question yet.
I'm a golden soror, golden
Oh.
at lifetime.
All right. Okay.
So you pledged on campus of Virginia State.
Virginia State, yes.
Okay.
Alpha Epsilon chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And so did my my daughter.
Uh-huh. At Virginia State as well?
Mhm.
Okay, very good. So,
You did.
Colonel?
Yes, I guess I got a simplistic question. Is global warming?
You asking a math professional simplistic question?
Yes. I see your studies here in polar grid, stuff like that. But can you break down what is this global warming issue that the right talks about that doesn't happen? And why is it important?
The right talks about,
Confederates of the country.
They say that it's not global warming.
there's a change in the temperature of our earth is causing the melting of glaciers all over the world. Glaciers that people depend on for water will no longer be there. Glaciers that, and as those glaciers melt, they contribute volume to the oceans.
Exactly.
Okay, which raises the level. When you pour water and more water in the glass, that raises, it goes up, you know, and that means it's going to come on. It's attacking our sea line, our coastal line. We're losing our coastlines. I mean, I live in Portsmouth, but did you see the news recently? What happened in North Carolina? Those people, the property fell into the ocean.
Yes.
It just came up and consumed it. Okay, the same thing is happening all over the world. That's because of global warming, the rise in sea level, and it's going to continue until we decide the right this realizes that this is a real thing.
Why is it so hard for the science world to convince us of what we witness every day? We see strange things happening in California. Did we have a winter here in Virginia? I mean, not really. I mean, it's almost spring now, and I never put my shorts and stuff away.
Yeah.
So why is it so hard? I guess Colonel would say, and he's probably right, that it's all politics as far as that's concerned. But you know, the people that are woke, why is it so hard to? I'm gonna use that word since they're trying to take it away from us. But why is it so hard to convince people of something that's so evident? You know, especially with people of your caliber that have the data to prove that this is happening, and we need to do something about it.
Well, I'm kind of on the fringes of what I know about politics because I have very political clout of any kind. I just try to make sure that the data is there and it's for those who are open to that. But there's it's a lot of it is economics too. You know, change is expensive. I really don't have an answer for you, James, because that's just not where I excel.
Yeah.
I don't want to go off that list.
Yeah, and that could almost be a rhetorical question because you know that's something that we've been asking for years, and it's no real sensible answer to that except that the science speaks for itself, you know, and that's all you can say. And politics is.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Hayden, I remember my first time I went to Alaska and saw the Mendenhall Glacier. And then when I went back there a couple of years later, and the glacier is slowly melting away, you know, and they're saying that should it completely melt, that Juneau will not exist any longer because the waters will just wipe Juneau out. So you know, it's just, you see it on a regular basis. You see the change in the water level when you go to Venice. The water levels have changed. Something is happening, and we have to acknowledge the fact. And I'm glad that you all are studying these things, studying these, I know Jerome told me all about the ice caps and all this other stuff that he was doing, So I'm glad to hear that somebody's actually out there studying, and most of all, that you're preparing our African-American students to study and to learn these things, and having the exposure by going to other countries in order to be a part of this whole change that's taking place in the world. So I commend you for that, and so much that you're doing for our students.
They have a lot to contribute. They have we have another young man. I don't know if you remember Jamie Powell. Jamie was, his father taught technology at Norfolk, but Jamie has been with us for a long time. Jamie is now he is now a computer engineer with Texas Academic Computing Center, but he spent time in the Arctic and Greenland, and his talent was critical because he needed to be there to pull the disks of data that was collected as the flights collected data over the Arctic region. They come back in. He was there to make sure that that data was properly stored, cataloged, and saved. Those kinds of skills are critical. And so we work primarily with the computer science hardware end of this project. And we have so many computer science, African-American computer science majors who are doing an excellent job at supporting those polar researchers. They're not polar, well, Jerome they have polar research projects, but they provide a critical level of support for those who are doing the seismic experiments, who are doing the radar experiments. They're there to support all of that.
I'll tell you, it's amazing. Have you had a chance to go to Antarctica or Greenland yet?
I have been to the Arctic.
Okay, to the Arctic.
Antarctica.
The Arctic.
Yes, the Arctic, and to some of those northern glaciers.
Okay. All right. Wonderful.
But we actually view things from space. We use a lot of data sets collected from the satellites to do what we do. So we don't actually have to be there, because remote sensing is the ability to collect and to see characteristics without actually being there and feeling and touching it.
Exactly. Wow.
So who do you all share that data with?
Who do we share? We share it with the scientists of the projects like the CREASIS project, which is the Center for Remote Sensing of Ice Sheets. We share it with people who are like the University of Oregon. I was online with them today. They have a Center for Oldest Ice on Earth. That's what they're studying. And so we have to kind of share the work with them.
Yeah, is that kind of information that's contracted out, or it's just part of an informational system that just goes out automatically, what the students do?
We do have partnerships with them, and we definitely have to do our part to make sure that it all goes well. We were able to discover the ECSU Bay because we were tasked with verifying the grounding line for their Antarctic expedition or field trip. Every so often you have to check to make sure that the grounding line has not changed, so you can calculate your fuel consumption, your flight times properly. And so we were tasked with using remote sensing data to properly let them know where the grounding line was. Well, we noticed a little anomaly or something while we were doing it, but we had to get them that information so that they could request their right amount of fuel and plan their flights properly. But doing that one time, we noticed an anomaly, but we kind of put it aside because, as you said, we had a deadline, we had to produce. And we did. We were working with Goddard Space Flight Center on that task. And but next summer, we were had some students in, and we were looking for a project for them to work on. And we said, well, let's go back and grab this data and let them examine it. And we did, and we followed it up for the next summer and academic year with students kind of grinding through those data sets. And what we discovered was that there was actually an area that had retreated and had never reformed. And sometimes the areas were reformed during the wintertime, but this had never reformed, and it continued to retreat to the point where there was actually a bay that was exposed. And so Goddard Space Flight Center, they checked our data sets and stuff, they checked the results and realized that what we had found was that we had discovered a new bay, a new feature. And so they petitioned the Antarctic Naming Commission to name this bay after our university.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so just like there's a Chesapeake Bay and they're on the maps, and there's a San Francisco Bay on the maps, there's also an Elizabeth City State University Bay.
Wonderful.
In Africa, named after that trip that we did. We're real proud of that.
Wow, this sounds like stuff that will make a good science fiction movie.
It looks. I said this is the new Hidden Figures.
Yes,
it's the new Hidden Figures. You and your ECSU students. You all are the new Hidden Figures.
But one other question for the other hosts get in. Funding sources now is what you all do a part of the regular university budget, because it's a lot involved there. No. Grants and government, and that's why I asked about the contract part of it.
Okay.
Some of your work contracted out, to fund what you do.
Okay. Over the course, I have been very fortunate. Over the course of my career there, I started in 1980 in Elizabeth City, but left for a while to go back and get my PhD. But starting in 1993, I started looking for funds for the research, because the university did not have the money to provide the kinds of computing capabilities that we needed in this research. And if they did, they were providing things that were, say, comparable to what was in business department or what was in the English department. And that was not what we needed. We need some more powerful computers to crunch those numbers, to let those students understand how to build networks, and so I had to go after and find some money for these things. So I did. With Navy, started with the Office of Naval Research, and we started with a grant for $28,000 with Mr. Charles Luca to buy some computers for the laboratory. The next year was $35,000, and then I think we got up to $100,000 and so forth. To do that, but eventually I got to the point where I asked for $1 million, and I tell you, Stephanie tell you, I went through something. I just couldn't. I don't know. It was a ceiling, okay, and I had to break through that. So I said, I'm going to do it this time, Stephanie. And I wrote that grant for $1 million, and it was funded. We're now up to $28 million.
Wow.
And I have never been without funds since 1993. Never without a grant. It's either Navy was a long-term partnership. As I said, they funded us until about 2014. And NASA was had a partnership. We were network resources and training site for them. They funded us to the tune about $12 million or so. For years and years, and allowed me to work with universities who were not, many of those universities at that time did not have routers on campus, did not have internet access. So Virginia State, we went up there and we actually installed the first router on Virginia State.
Okay.
And Norfolk State was one of the schools assigned to me as well. Hampton Bennett College, we installed the routers there. I can't tell you how many drill bits we won out trying to network some of the local schools, like Douglas Park and elementary school and all the schools in Elizabeth City, to bring the internet into those classrooms. And the NASA grant allowed me to do that. Quite a bit of work was done there just to make sure that our communities came onto the information superhighway, training the parents and the teachers to make cables and crimp cables and pull the cables. And that was an exciting time and very necessary, I think, but that was NASA. And then after NASA, we had about a 12-year run with NASA funding. And then NSF kicked in about 2005 with the Center for Remote Sensing of Ice Sheets grant, and that lasted 12 years. And we now have, I now work with NSF's Center of Excellence for Science Gateways. So it has been a continuous and very fruitful and just blessed with funding. We have been refunded for another 5 years. Our NSF Science Gateway Award. And people are still calling to join us.
But Dr. Hayden, what propelled you to move in this direction with your math and your science? Because it's really an area which I haven't heard any Black folks talking about before. So, I haven't heard this before. So what propelled you? What moved you into that direction, though?
Well, I was teaching when I was, let me see, I think there are a number of, two answers I'm going to give you to that. First of all, I had a son, and my sister had a daughter. We actually had one, and I watched Stephanie pay $1,000 a month to send her daughter to Hampton at that time. Okay, every month she had to write that check. She and Daniel had to write that check, and I'm thinking my daughter's coming up behind me. I'm a woman. I've got a good education, good credit, and a decent job, and $1,000 a month would not be easy.
Yes.
Okay. And what about all those mothers out there that didn't have all that going for them, but had these beautiful children at home, intelligent and ready to go? And so once that hit me, I never wrote another grant proposal without including scholarship and fellowship money in it, ever, and continue to this day to do that. The other answer to that, well, I don't know. I'll just leave that alone. That was the main thing. But there were people who led me in that direction. That's where the money was. Mr. Charles Luther was president of the IEEE Geoscience and Remote Sensing Society. He was with me at a review panel one time, and I saw Charles come to these panels where I was actually at Hampton, and we were reviewing applications for fellowships, for students to come to fellowship. And he would bring money from Navy to the table for fellowships, and we'd have 200 applications and only have 16 awards to give, and he'd leave with the same money in his pocket that he came there with, because he didn't see what he was looking for in the application pool. So I just didn't like seeing that happen. And so I told him one day, I said, if you're going to come here, you need to make sure that if you're looking for something, you need to make sure that there's some people out there who are prepared and you can't just wait, and you can't expect them to just appear, and you have to, develop these students. So I saw him at a conference because I basically swore at him. I was ticked that he was going home with his money in his
pocket.
Yeah, that students needed that money. So I saw him at a conference in Hawaii one time, and he told me, he said, "Don't leave here without talking to me, Linda." And I was, and I kind of was put back because I remember the last conversation we had was a good one. But it turned out that he was moving that next year as the president of that society. He was And so what he wanted to do was to build a program that would prepare these students for these kinds of careers. And so he actually took what I said to heart.
Okay, so it was meant to be.
That you can't just expect these students to appear. You got to nurture them. You got to provide them with the right set of experiences. You know, you got to provide them with field experiences.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got to build that. And so he did. And that's what my first $35,000 came from, was for Charles Luther. So he was a remote sensing expert for Navy.
Okay.
And some of their larger programs. And he encouraged me to do that. So the one answer is that, you know, I had to help these mothers and these kids, if given the opportunity, who could just perform. They just needed the money to pay tuition, you know. And the other was that Mr. Luther was there to say, here's the money. Navy, let's do this.
Wow.
Colonel, would it be safe to say that in the military, they are looking for recruits now in the type of fields that are coming out of East Elizabeth City State and other universities that concentrate on what Dr. Hayden is talking about? It's sort of changed. The military is looking for those technical savvy people, right?
Yeah, we're always, well, the military is always short of any kind of STEM educated folks, and that's the same thing across the nation. You know, if you're a STEM graduate, then you know you can write your own check. You know, you don't have to worry about employment. You can find somewhere to go. And a little known fact is research in this country is mainly funded by the federal government. The more dollars are put out there than people ever realize.
Oh, yes.
You know, and they're putting money everywhere.
So Dr. Hayden, how are you actively recruiting your students now?
That's interesting, because I never really did a lot of recruiting.
They come to you. They come looking for you when they get to eat. Yes.
God has been so good to do that, and people contact. They know the kind of students that I'm looking for, and they send them to me. They really do. Students bring students to the door. But I do work with the recruiters at Elizabeth City State University, and I do let them know that the scholarships are available. And if they find students who are out there who want to major in math and computer science, then they should, you know, give them the application, tell them I want to talk to them. We don't do like I said, I don't do a lot of heavy recruiting, but I certainly do encourage students from Norcom to let's do this. Let's come to Elizabeth City and let's work together. It's not going to be your typical kind of education if you join my research lab, but you will be having experience unlike any other at any other HBC.
That's for sure.
You find yourself in Germany and on a mountain and in Norway and in Sweden and all over. Yeah.
And like you said, and the students have to feel, they have to feel what it is they're doing. We were just talking about that today at a meeting that I had, and they were talking about how I was mentioning how we press so hard for students to pass the SOL, that there's not any critical thinking going on. There's not any creative thinking going on, because as long as I can pass the SOL, I'm good to go. But then the students are losing a lot as a result of this SOL testing.
Yeah.
They're not challenged. They're not challenged at all. So, I mean, I look at students with so much talent, and it's just sitting back and not doing anything because there's nothing there to encourage them.
That is certainly unfortunate. You have to expose them.
You have to expose them.
You got to.
Yeah.
You know, the other part of that is that we shoot for, or the educational system shoots for the lowest common denominator. And only some of the kids out there that have parents that want to push them. And so they tell you, you got to have so many credits of this, so many credits of that. But once you get them in, then you don't push your kids to take the higher maths and the higher sciences and biology and whatever, more than the enough to get out of high school.
Yeah, and it's important. I usually encourage, you know, I love mathematics. I always have, I always will. And mathematics makes you a problem solver. It teaches you discipline in your thinking. And everybody wants a problem solver. No matter what you eventually end up doing, whether it's computer science or math or history or in law for somewhere. Critical thinking is important. Being a problem solver is important, and mathematics teaches you that. And so I always encourage, take as much math as you can. In fact, you should demand it. You know, don't take no for an answer. Take all you can whenever you can, and no matter what field you end up in, you will be better off having had those mathematics classes. We used to have law schools. In fact, one of my classmates at Virginia State was talking to me the other day. She was a math major with me, and law school recruited her. And she had no problem making it through law school.
Of course not. That's right.
And she was a critical thinker.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I have to mention that Michael Allen Chapman has given you, he said, Dr. Hayden has helped a lot of people pursue their STEM dreams. And Michael Chapman is a retired
from
engineer.
Langley?
Yes, he's actually the colonel's brother.
Is that your brother? You're one of my favorite people. Yes. Known him for years.
Yeah, he's always talked about how important STEM is. And, you know, Doctor, the kids coming up through high school and, you know, like you started early, and some kids start real early knowing what they want to do. Kids coming up through high school, are they really prepared to go into programs like you have at Elizabeth City and other colleges in math and science and technology? Are we really prepared? You know, you hear something different. You hear some things different, but or if they're not, what do they need to do to be better prepared to compete in a program such as yours?
We want students who are hungry for knowledge, and we can work with them in terms of building the background skills that they need. If they can work with me, I'll work with them. But I don't want to go out and find you. We have regularly scheduled meetings Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 5 to 7. We have pizza. We have training sessions there. If you're there, you will get the information that you need. You will get the nurturing and support that you need in order to make it through. There are peer mentors, there are graduate school mentors, the graduate mode mentors, the faculty mentors. It's all there to help you make up any deficits, but you've got to come, got to show up. And if they've got that, then I want them.
Because we've heard a lot of college students say that they didn't really excel until they got to college. I mean, they sort of skated their way through high school because they didn't know what they wanted to do.
That's right. The light bulb hadn't gone off.
Right, it hadn't gone off. But when they got to college, they did much better than they did. So, it's a thing where some need to be prepared and some, like you said, have to have that will and have to want that knowledge, have a thirst for knowledge in order to succeed.
They got it.
But Dr. Hayden, I have
a story for you, Julia, because you know Carl and Jerome.
Jerome, yes.
Well, right. Well, I have lots of stories about both of those guys, but anyway, I remember when Jerome came first and then Carl came.
Right.
Okay, so Jerome comes in, and Jerome was always front row center guy. When he comes into the meeting, he's gonna sit front row.
That's Jerome.
Right in the center.
That's Jerome.
And so, but Carl is also made out of that same material. So in comes Carl, and he sees Jerome sitting in his seat.
Okay.
In the first meeting, okay. So he so Jerome, from the time Jerome, Carl came to the time Jerome left, Carl sat right over Jerome's shoulder, breathing right down his neck at every meeting until Jerome graduated.
My two boys.
They were, yes. They were
Yes.
so much. They were a delight to work with, I tell you.
But look, Dr. Hayden, I have one of my excellent students at Norcom who's watching it now, Mr. Cole Brown. And Mr. Cole is excellent in math. So I am hoping that Mr. Cole Brown is listening to you today and that he's preparing. He's trying to find where he's going to go to college. So Cole, you need to catch up with Dr. Hayden. Cole is an excellent student. He's an excellent student at IC Norcom.
I'd love to have him.
Yeah,
You're
don't
that
sleep.
Cole.
I'd love to have him.
Don't sleep on
application
her.
Yeah.
Don't sleep.
Go ahead, Doctor.
The application's online at nia.ecsu.edu. NIA NIA, which is the principle of Kwanzaa. That means
There you go. Purpose.
purpose. Yeah, about it.
All right now. Okay.
So if you
Yeah.
go to that site, nia.ecsu.edu, you'll find a scholarship application.
Okay,
Please,
Cole
I'd
Brown.
love to get it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Brown, I'd love to have you.
Don't sleep on these HBCUs.
And he's great in math. He's great in all his courses, and he's an excellent musician on top of all of that.
Oh my goodness. And
Yes.
his name is
Cole
Nicole.
Brown. Cole,
Cole.
Cole. Cole Brown. Excellent student. Excellent
Okay.
musician.
I got one.
Well-rounded young man.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What's
Wow.
the
Go ahead,
tuition,
Colonel.
Elizabeth City?
What'd you say?
What is the tuition rate at Elizabeth City? Kids want to know how much is it going to cost me to go to.
Yes. Elizabeth City has a wonderful program now where they have reduced tuition rate. In-state students' tuition rate is $500 per semester.
Wow.
Out of state is $2,500 per semester. Can you believe it?
No, not at all.
That's because of the state of North Carolina's special program. So out of state students, $2,500 semester, $5,000 a year. That's tuition. And that is not room and board
Yes.
included. So
Right.
total
People have to know
package-
that too. It's not room
Yeah,
and
know
board.
that too. So $10,000 a year for tuition, that's $5,000 a semester. Room and board probably doubles that. So we're talking about maybe $20,000 a year.
So you already not impacted by the North Carolina government. I know North Carolina A&T had to pay a fine for taking in so many out-of-state students. So
our chancellor, we have a wonderful chancellor, Chancellor Dixon. She has made a big effort to help them understand that we're in the northeastern corner of North Carolina.
Exactly.
We're closer to Virginia's
Yes, you are.
city than we are many North Carolina cities. And so she has got an exception for us.
Okay.
Yes, for years we did live under that roof of 19%
Yes,
max.
exactly.
But she has an exception. Of course, we're a state institution. We're funded by state funds. And so that's one of the reasons they try to limit that to North Carolina students, but there's room.
Yes.
There's these Virginia students now. She's made room for them.
Good. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, you all better watch out because we had Senator Lucas on a few shows ago, and they are lowering the eligibility or making it easier for out-of-state students to come to the state schools in the city of Virginia. I mean, in the state of Virginia. So the competition is going to get rough, especially if y'all are charging that much for out of state. But
it's $2,500 a semester.
You can't beat that, that's for sure.
I don't know if they're gonna beat that
I
part
don't think
here.
they're gonna beat that.
I don't think it will be that either.
That's for sure. All I think about is all those
Yes.
dollars we had to pay for my daughter to go to Hampton, and it wasn't.
I
And
know
let me
that's
tell you what, it
Yeah.
wasn't $1,000 a month then either. So
That's a
yeah,
whole different story. The
whole nother
private institute,
story.
Hampton and Union, and
Yep.
some of the others.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, and I see that one of our wonderful school personnel members is on too, Anna Marie Cross. Anna Marie, share this information with the students in our school system. She's watching as well.
And Eric Perryman, thanks for your input. I see you talking about the grants and agreeing with Dr. Hayden on many of the points she's making tonight.
See
So.
the chat, so we have to go on YouTube.
Yeah,
was
you can
that?
go on her page after the show, and you'll
Okay.
see all the chats are not on the Zoom, they're on Leah Stitt's Facebook page.
Oh,
You can
And then later
can-
on, it'll be on YouTube. Later tonight,
Okay.
it will be on YouTube as well.
can you put that link in the chat for me?
I surely will.
Thank you.
Mm.
So I do hope to hear from you, Cole Brown,
Give me the link again, Doc. It's NIA.
NIA
Uh-huh.
.ECSU.edu.
Okay, Cole is in here. It's in the chat box, so I'll make sure that they get it. I'll make sure they get it. Yes.
Thank you.
it's
And
amazing.
And feel free to explore the page. It shows you under recent events there, we document all the outreach that we do with photos. So feel free to have fun on the page. There's information there about Elizabeth City State University Bay, some of the other research projects. I'm sorry about the sneeze, but it's a lot of good information there. Upcoming events. I think we need to update the upcoming events link. Recent events is there, and a lot of the publications and outreach stuff.
Dr. Hayden, did you take your doctoral thesis, the one I read earlier? That was just the title of it. Did you take any of that you did then to receive your doctorate into what you're doing now?
Yeah, it prepared
It's
me.
a big part of what you.
A big part. Actually, at the time I did the thesis, I was in Washington, D.C. at American University. And it was amazing. I worked with Winston Coleman there at UDC on Saturdays in their Saturday Academy program. And we were able to look at the high ability students in the Washington, D.C. area. And believe it or not, even those high ability students were only graduating at a 50% rate. 50% rate. It was
believe it.
Incredible. Which is what motivated me to look at that study. What was working with them, what was not working. And working with Winston Coleman with the engineering program on Saturday, I was able to study those kids. And that fed right into the thesis, which fed right into what we're doing now, very much. Mentoring and motivating students. That presidential award from NSF came for mentoring ability and reaching that population,
right,
and supporting their efforts to in STEM.
And you ended that with a choice of quantitative major. Now you mentioned about the rate is the 50%. Did the choice of the major have anything to do with that rate?
Major. Well, quantitative major meaning math, science, physics, chemistry. Those are what we consider quantitative majors. We found.
Oh, that's pretty the same. Go ahead.
Yeah, we found that. I found that those students who were nurtured and mentored on, and then their interests were sustained. Their interests were sustained through programs like that Saturday Academy engineering program. That they did choose. They did graduate. They did go to college, and they did choose quantitative majors. And that was the only thing I found that worked.
What else was factored into that? Could factored into the pressure of the college life, or the pressures, or emotional things that happen to students, you know, being away from home and all these kind of things that were they kind of included? I guess you would have to include the sociology
I'm
department.
going to kind of work around that question, of course. But one of the things we need to help our kids understand is that things happen in everybody's life. We all have issues. We all have stumbling blocks, and that we have to learn to work through those. And so one of the things on my task sheets for my students is for them to look at things like that things that help them. Motivational speakers like Les Brown and some other people.
Yes.
Give them the skills to make it through those tough times and keep going. Because I do realize that they need some skills to deal with those problems that are going to be non-mathematical problems as well. You know, just kind of
life,
like you said, life problems, right?
Problems.
That touches each and every one of us, you know. And
some of them bring it there with them, you know, when they come
bring
home,
it with
so
that's right.
Yeah, because I can imagine having to sit in that math class.
Yeah.
And you weren't about your boyfriend. I wonder who he's with, you know. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that goes on too. But like you said, that's a part of, you know.
That's right.
Part of everything. And make sure.
And another side of you, Dr. Hayden, you have stated, I understand, that you would like to visit as many of the presidential libraries as possible and major tennis venues. Now, how much of that have you accomplished?
Oh, quite a bit. We were there for at Roland Garros for the French Open.
Okay.
A few years ago, I've been to in Australia. I've been to Rob Laver Center there.
Okay.
Whenever I'm in an area, I try to find is there a presidential library here?
Right.
A major tennis venue. I can't wait for Obama's library to open.
Me too. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I've been to a few of those presidents. I made Jimmy Carter's and Bill Clinton's and John F. Kennedy's, and it was one other I've been to. But anyway, I'm waiting for Obama's as well.
Yes.
I'm waiting for that.
I went to Ford's, and what I realized when I went to Ford's,
the other one was Ford. Yes.
Ford, and was he was the only man who was vice president and president. And
that's right.
Never elected.
Right.
Found that out when I went to his library.
How about
that? I'm waiting on the Trump library. It'd probably be the quickest trip you make.
If there is a library, it'd be one book in it.
3 books.
One book.
Three books are the same thing.
You are bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
We hold no prisoners with Trump on this show.
Yes. Well,
you know, as we winding down to about an hour, it's been an interesting conversation with you, especially when you're talking about the subject we're talking about today. A lot of students don't get to hear this.
Michael said, wait a minute, James. Michael says Trump will be charged admission.
for his campaign, for his next campaign.
There you go. That's right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, James. I just had to hear that one.
That was a good one, Michael. But anyway, as we wind down, Doctor, we usually have the final comments from the host and then from our guests. And you know, so much involved with what you do there at Elizabeth City. And Elizabeth City as a college as a whole, I mean, they have the aviation, they have the pharmacy. And
don't have pharmacy anymore.
They don't have the pharmacy anymore?
Right. No, but they do still have aviation in a big way.
Okay, pharmacy, I guess that was kind of hard that Hampton caught it and then Elizabeth City. But anyway, they still have a lot of opportunities for, that's why I said, don't sleep on our HBCUs. And a lot of people, that's why we like to bring people that are involved with the HBCUs to spread that information. A lot of people don't, some people probably still think of Elizabeth City as the teaching college, which it was known a long time ago. That's where all the teachers went. to come out, you know,
True.
and
Portsmouth
that
was
was
full of teachers from Elizabeth
right
City.
from Elizabeth
Exactly.
City, because that was one of the few professions that were out there available to people if they wanted to stay around.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more going on there and at all our HBCUs. So consider our HBCUs. You can come out of there for good education and be valuable in the workforce out there. So, you know, that's what I had to say about it. Don't sleep on our HBCUs.
There you go. There you go.
I agree.
Yep.
Yes.
Especially you math geniuses.
How about that?
Come on
That's for
down.
sure. Come on down.
They got something for you. They got a challenge for you.
Right.
You don't have to go to Yale and Princeton. You can go to Elizabeth City and all
Listen,
our other.
and not only that, going to Elizabeth City for math will prepare you for life too. Because once you've been to an HBCU, you can make it anywhere in the world. So go to an HBCU and you will learn how to live. And you
If
forget
you
all
can
those
make it-
problems that you have, because you would have worked through every last one of them while you're there.
Thank God.
Well, Dr. Hayden, I want to tell you, you touch my heart, you warm my heart, because I know what you have done by mentoring so many of our students and where you have taken them. You've taken them places that they probably would not have even dreamed, even in reading books, they would not have dreamed of ever doing some of the things that you have provided those opportunities for those students. So I want to thank you. My heart is always with the children. Always with the children, and always with whomever is going to give them what they need in order to be successful. And I salute you. I tell you once again, I said in the opening that Mr. Norcom is smiling down on you, because this was his dream. This was his dream, that we would prepare our students to be the best that they could be. Yes. And you have truly done that. Because as I watch those young men and my young lady, as I watch them soar through life and see how well they're doing, let me tell you, that's a testimony to you and all that you have done to bring them to where they are today. And so once again, I say thank you, thank you, thank you, my dear Greyhound. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colonel?
Yeah, I'll echo what Aaliyah said, because she really summed it up. And I'd like to thank you for what you're doing. And as you plant these seeds for our young kids to prosper, you just keep on doing what you're doing.
Thanks for the words of encouragement.
Yes, yes. This is
and
your
the vote
season,
of
Doc.
confidence.
This is your season, Doc. You're reaping what you have sown. Do you hear me? It's coming forth. It's coming
and
forth.
I just don't have a comment, but one other question. You know, and I apologize if you've already mentioned where we can go to find that. Results or reports of the studies or the research that you all have done. Is there any place that anybody can go and sort of review that?
Oh, absolutely. That NIA site, nia.ecsu.edu.
That you mentioned earlier. Okay.
Right. If you follow the link to Elizabeth City State University Bay, on that, it has a link off that page that takes you to the scientific study, the publication that appeared in journal publication. And also our students, there's a link there for academic year research. It's kind of buried, but each year the students during the fall semester, they train, and then during the spring semester, they write research papers. And all of those papers are there under academic year. There's a link at the top of NIA, and you follow the academic year link, and each year, going back to 92, you will find the team projects and a link to their papers.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. And I suggest anybody reading that, unless you're mathematically or scientifically inclined, make sure you have your Google page open or a dictionary, old-fashioned dictionary, so you can keep up with what's going on. Now, I jest in that, but yeah, go that and take a look at what they have done and the studies they have done. You know, I'm sure it'll be an interesting read. Doctor, you have any last words or comments?
You can Google history maker Linda Bailey Hayden for more information. If you want plenty of stuff out there.
Yeah.
In the Library of Congress under video collection as well. But you also, you know, when you're on that page near, Google some of those students and see the wonderful things that they've done.
Yes, yes.
Oh, very proud. We mentioned
Telling
only
you.
a sample.
Only
of
mentioned just a handful. There's so many
hundreds
more.
of them.
Yes,
Hundreds,
yes,
dozens from Portsmouth,
yes, yes.
Chesapeake.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you know, just wonderful. I had one of the students from Virginia Beach.
Uh-huh.
He just finished his master's degree, and now we're getting him into the PhD program at the University of Virginia. We don't have PhD programs at Elizabeth City, but we have people who want our students, and so he has no problem going right into that PhD program.
I'm telling you, yes, yes.
All he has to do is fill out that paperwork.
That's it. He's ready to roll.
He's ready to go.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So yeah.
And whatever you find about those students, make sure you share that information. Share it with other people, because that's the kind of information we don't always get. We always sit down in front of the news and see the bad things that our students are
Exactly.
doing. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
people that don't know, you know, a false sense of what we all about. So once you find out about these students, share that with you, especially you educators. Make sure you share it with your students and to give them an incentive to take their lives a little further. So again, thanks again. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you very
Hayden.
much. Thank you. Love you too.
And of course, Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice
Our community.
In our future.
and we
We
salute you,
Dr.
Doctor.
Hayden. We salute you.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you for all that you do. Thank you so
Yeah.
very much.
Hopefully we can have you back at some point.
Sure, love to. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks everybody for watching. We appreciate it.